Hey everybody, it's Patty and I'm back to talk more sewing. Today we're going to talk about a recent make that I just posted to Instagram that is all from Thrifted Finds. So here is the finished garments, two garments, but we're mostly talking about the tank top today. Just to show you where I started, this is my original picture that I posted to Instagram of my haul. And what I got this day was this piece of fabric here that was in the domestics bin at Goodwill for $1. And it was, I don't know, it was a couple yards. It was about 42 inches, 46 inches long, fully hemmed with really wide hems that were folded over and had a blind hem stitch. So it was really nice. And there was a loop sewn on one corner. So I think it might have been used as maybe a bathing suit wrap, or I was wondering if it was used as a sling for a baby. I'm not super well versed in baby stuff, but I thought that might have been something too. But it was a nice piece of fabric for $1. It feels like a really light cotton. The next thing that I got was this right here, which was a tank top. It was a size 2X tank top, and it's 100% silk, and it was really pretty. And I think that the shirts at Goodwill in my area are $3.49. So it was just a really pretty color. It was just a basic tank top. I have a picture. This isn't the actual tank top, but it's very similar. This is what it looked like. So super basic. It had a couple little slits down at the bottom like that. It had darts, scoop neck, wider straps. And honestly, I probably would have worn it unaltered. Here's it's not a great picture because of how it's blown up, but this is a picture of me wearing the tank top before I altered it. And I would have worn it. I would have liked it more tucked in. Like I could wear it untucked, but it was so long that I just wouldn't have worn that proportion. It would look cute under cardigans, but I, in general, don't love tucking in shirts. So I was like, well, maybe there's something I can do with it. I bought it thinking that I could make it more short and swingy and less long, and it wasn't exactly fitted. It was just that it fit pretty close to my body. The one thing I did like about it is it fit really well in the bust area. It wasn't gaping, it wasn't tight, it just fit really well. So I got that. Then I got this scarf, which is an infinity scarf. It had this lace trim on both ends, and then the inside is like a rayon blend. It's really pretty. And then you can hardly see it, but I have a picture of his cardigan in here that kind of matches, so everything goes together. So that was my haul. And this is what I made from the haul. I reworked the tank top to be a short, swingy, asymmetrical hem tank top. I made a lantern skirt, and you can see here I used the trim from the scarf on the edge of the skirt. I could still wear the scarf, just the rayon part is still there, and I could still wear it. I probably will wear it. I need to clean up the edges a bit, but I probably will wear it. I was thinking of using it to lengthen the skirt or even the shirt to make it more matchy, but I ended up not doing that. And then I have the sweater, which I have a picture somewhere of me wearing the sweater. I can show it to you real quick. Um, do do do. And I'm actually wearing the sweater right now as we speak. Here's a picture. So here, this picture drives me nuts. The tank top I love, but it shifts really easy, so the buttons are not on center. So much so that I was actually thinking of taking the buttons off because they draw attention to that. But here's the sweater, which I love because it's kind of like a super thin, light sweater. There's a lot of lace work in it, so it's really nice for summer. So a little something, but not too much something. But we're not really going to talk about the sweater because I didn't really do much to it. So let's talk about what I did with the tank top because it was kind of a fun little project. I am a huge fan of Krista Larson designs, and if you don't follow Krista Larson, you should. She's so creative. And one of the things I love about Krista Larson is she tends to do a lot of the same designs over and over and over in different colorways. In fact, if you look at her new arrivals, which will just show things as she puts them in store. Everything is one of a kind. Um, I believe everything is one of a kind. You can see she just does the same thing in different colorways. So she just released a sort of orangey chartreuse colorway, and before that was I think it was a greenish blue. Yeah, then there was some green blue, sort of neutrals, lemony. So she kind of just releases the same styles over and over and over, and uses different fabrics and sometimes different finishing, but really it's a lot of the same stuff. So she has this bolero style. So she has the vests and she has these jackets. And I really was like, okay, I really like the way this bolero style sort of finishes the outfit. It's like a good topper piece to wear with the longer layers. Obviously, this is a little bit different because than with what I was starting with, because there's wider shoulders. Um, there's more fabric in the garment than I was working with. And then you can see it in this yellow one. It looks much more fitted, so it's wide at the shoulders and much more fitted across this middle section. That's because there's a drawstring in the vests in the back, so it can create a more fitted look. But in general, I like the look, and I was like, okay, I want to go for something like that, which look at how awesome this velvet jacket is. I might want to make one of those. So that was kind of my starting point for inspiration. So going back to what I had to work with, all I had was this tank top. So here we've got, on the left we have, I found a picture of something very similar to what I was working with, and then our finished item, and then I have some detail pictures. So the first thing I did is I put it on, and I put on some pins to kind of gauge where I wanted to cut things off. And I cut it off about here. So that gave me, you can't really see it in some of my pictures, but this definitely scoops up. So that gave me a lot of fabric to work with. The first thing I wanted to do is I wanted it, well, it fit. I'm sorry I don't have any better pictures. It did fit. You could see a little pulling across the bust. It wasn't super tight, but it wasn't, it was a pretty fitted tank top on me, which actually is great for layering, but I wanted swingy. So the first thing I decided to do was to just add more width. And I did that by cutting godets, which is, and I think on Instagram I called it something else, but it was a godet. So I cut 2 triangles. So what I did, I mean, just like in super practical terms, I took this bottom hem that I cut off, and then I cut the side seams. So then I had 2 rectangles that were like, you know, well, they looked like rectangles. They didn't look like that. So then I had these 2 rectangles, and I kind of was like, okay, well, I'm going to use one for my size, my reshaping, and one for if I want to do a placket, because I liked the look of the button placket, like the button connection here on the bolero vest, and I knew that I would probably need to do a placket, or I considered some other options, but I knew I'd need something for the center front. So I kind of set aside one of these, like this was the front maybe, and this was the back maybe. So I just set them on top of each other. Kind of had a, I didn't set them on the top of each other. I folded it in half. And I kind of was like, okay, I want to add maybe, this is probably 4 inches. I want to add maybe 4 inches to the bottom hem. So I just used a ruler and I cut. So by then I had the piece of silk folded in half like that. Well, I'm not able to draw good rectangles. Let's do that one more time. So I had this folded in half. I just used the ruler, and I was like, okay, so 4 inches down here, and I I had it laid out on a cutting mat, so it was actually 5 inches now that I think about it. So it was 5 inches. So I knew 2.5 was up here, and I just drew a symmetrical triangle. And then I had the two triangle pieces, and I sewed in a godet. If you haven't sewn in a godet before, it's Godet. If you can look on the internet like how to sew in a godet, and there are instructions on how to do it. It's not as difficult as it seems. You basically, so you've got a pattern piece that looks like this. It's a triangle. So your seam allowance is like here and here, right? So this point right there, you just know where that point is, and then when you sew it in, you line up that point. I'm going to change colors. So that point, you line it up right there, and then you just sew this first seam. And when you're sewing the seam, it's very important to just start sewing here. You don't go back and forth. You just start sewing. Otherwise, it'll create weird tucks. And then you flip it, and then you sew the other seam. And it does feel a little bit awkward while you're doing it, especially at the top, because it doesn't line up really perfectly the way you might expect it to, but it all works out at the end. And then what happens, since you don't go back and forth, you have your two free strings. You put a needle on them, and then you bring them back in, and then you tie everything on the back to secure it, rather than doing reversing your stitch. And then I forgot to take a picture. It's really messy, and it's not what I like. I would have done this better, but there was two things going on. One, I didn't have a lot of fabric to work with. My preference would have been to press, turn under, and hand stitch, kind of do a bound seam, but hand stitched, to make everything look really good in the inside, but I just didn't have enough fabric to do that. So I finished these seam allowances with my serger, but I only had gray thread, so it doesn't look that awesome, but it is at least finished. Then I wanted to add some security and just some detail. So I pressed everything, and it's not the best stitching in the world, but I have a whole bag of Gutermann's silk thread that I use for hand sewing, and I had a color that matched. So I just did a running stitch to kind of secure those seam allowances and to add a little bit of interest. So I did that. I made sure that it looked inset, so you can see the godet is inside and there's the edges, and that made it really nice. I almost stopped then. I was like, okay, by then it was just a wide swingy tank. If you can imagine, it was like this. It had a straight hem here, and it was just solid all through here. But I was like, no, I can do more. I mean, I did, this is my Ursina sweater. Knitting. That's how I keep track of knitting. I did consider stopping, and I was concerned that if I kept going, then I would, ruin it. But I was like, it's a $4 tank top. Who cares if I ruin it? So then what I did, I took the shirt, and I folded it so that the side seams were together. So the front looked like this. That's not quite what it looked like. I am really bad at drawing. If you've watched any of my other videos, it was like this. Here's the neck, and then there's a center front, and then there's that. And the side seams were over here. I just used my French curve ruler, which is my best friend, and I kind of eyeballed, I did put it on, and I stuck a pin where I wanted to end it. And it was a real thought process, because what was going through my head was I wanted a curved hem, and I wanted as much curve as I could get, knowing that I might end up with some tummy showing at the top of the curve, depending on how I did the finishing, because I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to finish it. So I stuck in a pin at the very highest point where I was like, okay, well, this covers my bra, you know? So I wanted to make sure that I could wear the shirt on its own, that it didn't have to go over another tank top or something else in order to be decent. So that's where I put the pin. And that was about, I didn't really measure. It's probably like about an 8-inch. This is probably about 8 inches. So I stuck that pin in, and then I just used my French curve to cut the front. I am. Hold on a second. Let me change this side. The cut actually looks like this, right? So then I cut away all this fabric. So then I put it on, and it was cute. And again, I thought of just smoothing out. You know, by then it looked like this. Well, so we had this, and then I cut in this. So it looked like that. It was cute, but it looked a little bit weird without having a reason for the shaping in the form of a placket. And I was a little concerned if I just left it that this point right here would not wear well, that it would just, I put it on and just rip right up the center front. So I decided to go ahead and make a placket. So I went back and forth on how to do the placket. I initially was thinking that I would make it a functional placket. So I still had this whole panel to work with, which was probably about, it was probably about 8 inches by, it's probably 28, the bottom hem, give or take. No, it's probably less than that. Well, no, it's probably about that. So it was a pretty good amount of fabric, and I was unsure of what to do. There were some things that I took into consideration, which is when you do a placket, which is what we have here. If you do a regular placket, like one that so regular placket, in case you don't know, there's 2 rectangles, and they're each attached to the side of your shirt, and then one rectangle gets the buttonholes and one rectangle gets the buttons, right? And the way that you create a placket is you have a piece of fabric that's twice as wide as the placket will end up being, and you sew on one side. So like this piece would go over here. You sew it on right sides together, and then you fold under this side and finish it, and then you fold that. Well, you actually fold it this way, and then you do the top, and then you fold it to the ends. You do it this way, then you sew the top, and then you fold it to the inside, whoop, and then the finished edge goes here and encases the raw edge that was already there. I feel like I really explained that badly. But my point that I'm trying to make is that a placket piece has one raw edge and one finished edge. And because I was working with the pieces I took off the shirt, I already had finished edges on each of these sides. So I wanted to utilize that in the placket. So I ended up, though, after folding it and refolding it and kind of thinking about what I wanted, I was still sort of thinking, so I had this shape, right? Like it was like this. Let me change my pen color. I had this shape. It was like this. I was actually thinking of cutting a center front seam and then using this excess fabric to sort of build out. So this side would be a little bit more like that, and this side would be a little bit more like that. And then this would be the button side of the placket, and this would be the buttonhole side of the placket, similar to the shape of Krista Larson's Bolero jacket. I can't write on this, but I'm tempted to, yeah, I'll just do it. I'm just going to grab a screenshot here so I can show you what I was thinking. So we're just going to take that picture right there. Okay, so what I'm trying to describe is I was thinking of building out this part, because what I had was I had this shape, but it wasn't wide enough to have buttons. So what I was thinking was of extending the actual shape of the front of the garment by doing by adding on fabric, whether I consider it a shaped placket or whether I consider it just more patchworking some fabric together to make it work. I thought about that for a long time, but the problems I was having is mostly about my love of finished insides. I couldn't figure out how to have a finished hem and then attach a shaped piece to the front in a way that would look nice and lie correctly, basically. So that was my problem. So I decided that what I would do is what I did in the end, which is I added on a rectangle of fabric and then I put buttons on it to make it look like a placket. It's not functioning. It's stitched along here and it's stitched along here, and then you can see this other seam here that's left over from the hemline of the original shirt. So once I decided that I would do that, I decided to just go ahead and hem the whole thing, because this all along here, all around to the back, and then up around here was raw silk, and it needed to be hemmed. I thought of doing it with my machine very briefly, but I decided not to for three reasons. First, I was trying to preserve as much length and fabric as humanly possible, and the smallest hem that I can do with my machine uses up a half an inch of fabric. I would have used 1/4 inch steam-a-seam, stuck it on, and then folded it over, so that would use up 1/4 inch of fabric, and then folded it over again, working with my iron to press everything. I didn't want to use up that much fabric. I was also a little concerned that it wouldn't look that good on curves. Steam-a-seam works really well on curves, and working with curves is really working in the bias, and fabric is very malleable on the bias, but it still folds and puckers a little bit when you're folding, especially along this side part here, because you're folding in and there's more fabric on the outside that you need to ease into a more narrow, a shorter hemline, if that makes sense. And I just wasn't sure if I get it to look nicely. I can't talk. Finally, the steam-a-seam hems I do because they're easier, it gives you a line. Some people sew a line, like they'll sew a 1/4 inch guideline and then they press to that. I just don't like doing that much work, and I always burn my fingers with my iron. But they are a little bit stiffer because steam-a-seam is like a fusible web, and it's not super thick, but it does have some body to it. So add some body to the hem, and I didn't want to add that much body to this silk, which was a pretty lightweight silk, but it had some body, and if I added more, it would make it more thick. So I decided to do a traditional rolled hem, which is super fun to sew. And if you ever do a rolled hem, there's a lot of different tutorials on the internet, and it'd been a while since I'd done a rolled hem. So just a little, I'll just show you what I did. So you've got your edge, right? So this is the unfinished edge. What you do is you kind of fold up this edge. You sort of pinch it in your fingers. I did it about 1/8 of an inch. Doop. And then you get this sort of fold. So let's pretend we fold it. You have to like do it as you're working. and you take, I'm going to switch to blue. So you catch a few threads on, like right off the raw edge that you folded up. So this is our we'll do the orange. So orange is the raw edge, green is the folded edge, and then up here is the body of the garment. So you catch a thread there, then you stick the needle in here and you go inside the fold for about 1/4 inch, and you come out, and then you come out and then you catch a thread down there, and then you go here and then you go underneath for about 1/4 inch. So you get these like little V's of fabric, of thread along the way. And then these straight lines here are actually the fabric is, or the thread is inside the fold. And then every like few stitches you pull it tight, and it rolls it, and it creates this rolled hem that is really pretty and finished and nice, and it's kind of like magic. I really love doing rolled hems. It's very therapeutic. I love hand stitching, so that's part of that. So I ended up with the garment all set up, if you can imagine it. By then it was just finished, and I had to make my placket. So I did that by I just sewed a rectangle basically, and turned it inside. I finished 3 sides, turned it inside out, and the third side I had to press under, and then I hand stitched that shut. Then I had to attach it, and I wasn't 100% sure how I wanted to attach it. And again, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. I think I meant to, and I forgot. Part of what was also going on is I didn't have any thread at home that matched this shirt, and I was kind of just working on it. It was late. I didn't even want to go to the store. And also, I can get a little bit like, oh, we'll make this work, even if I don't have the matching thread. So I might have considered, had I had matching thread, I might have considered doing a zigzag stitch, because the placket was fully finished. There was no raw edges. And the shirt was fully finished, no raw edges. So I was attaching 2 things that had no raw edges together, and I was doing it intentionally. I thought of some different ways where I could have machine attached like one side of the placket, all that kind of thing, but I couldn't think of a way to do it so that the inside of the garment would look nice and have not a ton of bulk, not waste a ton of fabric, all that kind of stuff. So this is the way I did it. I had 2 finished edges I wanted to put together. Had I had matching thread, I might have considered a zigzag to join them. I like joining with zigzags. I like zigzags, especially with using a nicer fabric like silk. I like the kind of homespun dichotomy of using a zigzag, but that was not to be. I didn't want a ton of contrast. And these buttons look like they're really not spaced well, but they actually are in real life. It's just the perspective of the picture. So I just decided to attach it by hand. It's not the best sewing in the world. I'm a pretty fair hand sewer. I've done a lot of hand sewing and hand quilting, but it's always you get what you put into it. So I just did a quickie stitch. I have some inset pictures to show you. So this is what it looks like. And again, I don't know if you could quite see it. Let me change colors. But the little hand stitches are here. Here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one, here, here, here. So I basically I held the fabric so that the placket is just a little bit under the garment. So the placket is just a little bit under the garment. And then I held it kind of folded over my finger, and then I had the 2 folds right there, and I just would slide in my needle. Boop, there's a stitch. And kind of slide it over. This is probably 1/8 of an inch stitches, a little bit less. and then I'd slide it out, catch the other side, slide it back in, catch the other side. Very similar to a rolled hem, but oops, I didn't do that. So as you can see, that's kind of how I join them. I did the stitches small, so it's really seamless looking. There's no gaps. You can see here, like I said earlier, this is part of the hem of the original garment. The way I sewed it on, it had an exposed edge on both sides, so I knew it was going to show, and it did bother me. It gives a little bit of interest, but you can tell there's like machine sewing here. They had matching thread. So that's the way it looks on the inside, or on the outside. And then on the inside, you can see, like I said, this is the placket, and you can see that the folded edge just slightly oversets the garment edge. So on this side, it looks, the placket's on the outside, and when I'm wearing the garment, the placket looks a little bit more inset, which is the way I wanted it. Partially because I had done the godets that way, and partially just because that's the way I liked it. But this gave me a nice clean finish on the inside. There wasn't a lot of icky stitches. I really wish I had taken a picture. The godets are more messy looking. If you can imagine it, it's a serged edge all along here. And it's bright gray, like it's light gray serging thread. So that's that. So that's how I got this tank top. I'm really happy with the finished project. My husband, the pictures don't really show it, but in real life, when I'm wearing it, it does show a little bit of flesh right there. My husband's been calling it my I Dream of Jeannie shirt, which totally cracks me up. And I'm happy with the changes. I'm so happy, in fact, I took these pictures. I have this shirt I bought from the Loft last year. I just had to buy it, guys. I just had to buy it, even though it is not a style I like at all. But I was enamored with the fabric. It's like a cotton rayon blend. It's super light. The print is dark green, not black, and I just could not resist this pretty floral. I just had to have it. This is what it looks like on, and it is not, it's not my thing, guys. This is not at all a proportion I like to wear. I don't think it looks cute. I think that this line across right here, I kind of want it higher or way lower. I don't wear it often. But it was actually, I've been trying to sell my clothes, and it's gone in a couple sale posts, no bites, because, apparently I'm the only person in the world who liked this style. And I have it in my donate pile, but it's kind of annoying me because it was a more pricey shirt. I think it was like $50, and I still love the fabric. So I'm thinking of doing something similar with this shirt. Cutting, this has a little bit more length or width, so I might be able to just, cut this and then overlap it by about 1 inch and put really little buttons up here. It would show off a lot of my stomach, so it would only be a wear over other things piece, but I might try that before I throw it away, or donate it, just as an experiment to see if I can get a shape out of it I like, because I do like this shape that I ended up with, the I Dream of Jeannie shape. So that's how I did my tank top. Let me know if you have any questions, if you like watching my videos where I do my little notebook sessions of sewing, planning, and explaining how I did things. Let me know in the comments, or by subscribing, hitting like, all those things. Or if you want, send me a message. Feel free to come on over to Instagram and follow me. I love being connected to everybody on Instagram. I'm Patty Brower. And if you're more of a Facebook person, you can come and follow me on Facebook too. I put almost everything that I put on Instagram goes to Facebook, and I'm actually a little bit more chatty on Facebook. So just come and find my personal profile, Patty Brower, on Facebook, and give me a follow. I'm not logged in, so I can't actually show you. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you guys later.